Well, Fred Bleak back with Bill DeWeese for the weekly podcast. And so I guess the regular question is, Bill, how was your week?
It was good. It was not great. It was not nearly my weekly goal of $5,000. It was just a few dollars under 3,000, just a few dollars shy.
Microphone is scratching, just so you know.
Is it? Oh, what if I do this? Is that a little better?
Yeah.
Yeah, just under $3,000.
Got it. And so to what do you owe this this decline?
It's the and if you've noticed, it's been happening for the past several weeks. It's the delayed effect of what I haven't been doing over the past several weeks, which is, I had sinus infection, which went into bronchitis, which resulted in me not doing extra work on top of the work that I have coming in. Yep. And I made a decision this past week that I wasn't going to exert myself doing a bunch of auditions and extra marketing. I had other work that needed to be done related to voiceover training. I've had I had several demos to produce and such, so I was plenty busy. But in terms of the energy of doing auditions, I decided not to, and I've made another decision that this week I probably won't push as much as either. And there's a lesson in all of this. I was talking to my wife today, and she said, you have enough.
Here she is, by the way, right behind you.
She's running for cover. She's planting flowers. It's such a. I was mentioning to Fred before we started recording. It's the first day in 7 months that we've had 80-degree weather where I live, and so she's out planting flowers. And I was out mowing earlier, and I can feel my face is starting to get red, and I can feel the burn, and I love it, and I love it. But she was saying, it's been a long time since you've taken time off, and so when you're self-employed, if you're not working, you don't get paid, And I think we can tend to get a little paranoid. We're afraid if we're not there for our clients, they'll find somebody else. And there is a certain amount of truth to that. But at the same time, you've got to pace yourself and, occasionally.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Not at all.
This adds to the casual ambiance.
We're enjoying. I might start following you around and watch what you do over there.
For those of you who are listening on the podcast, by the way, and can't see the visual, Bill is sitting outside today in Bourbonnais, Illinois, and his wife has been walking by with some kind of a
watering
device. Yeah,
I love it. She's great with flower. She's really making the place look nice. But anyhow, Fred will come out for a visit soon and get to see it all firsthand.
Absolutely.
So anyhow, yeah, I mean, my voice feels, I feel good. I mean, I feel healthy, but my voice feels really tired. So I haven't pushed it. And next week, my oldest son graduates from college. Right. And I've got relatives coming, all kinds of relatives coming in town beginning Thursday. And I probably won't work much on Friday. So my plan is this, Fred. My plan is once he graduates, week after next, I'll start getting back to the hard nitty-gritty, the grind. And I try not to create, we live comfortably within our means, and I don't feel a lot of pressure to, that I have to make that amount of money every week. So yep. I leave myself a little room to breathe. So not to make excuses, but it's just, since I got sick, I just haven't been pushing as hard. It is what it is. And also, well, let's talk a little bit about the, before we get into the nuts and bolts of what happened on each day. How much effort have you been devoting to trying to work with the sort of the agencies and work on getting those bigger jobs that might be big fat checks? Yeah, I probably do 1 to 3 auditions a day, and I get a lot more auditions than that. It's just a matter of time and energy And so I try to pick and choose the ones I think I have the best shot at. But they come fast and furious. I mean, it's funny that you say that because for people who don't know, I think you may have been, if you've been listening to the podcast or watching the YouTube channel here, I signed up for the free version of both Voices and Voices.com and Voices123, and they've been sending me audition notices, none of which I've done anything with because I'm making sure that I don't do anything yet until you coach me a little bit on that. Sure. Which, again, people will be able to sort of understand. For those of you who are newbies, kind of like me, you'll be able to sort of walk with me through that whole thing. And then chances are on our weekly podcast, you'll be able to say to me, so how was your week? I look forward to that.
Yeah,
putting you on the hot seat.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's go back and let's take a look at Monday. So what happened on Monday?
Okay, so on Monday, it was interesting. It started off with my third read for a project for a client for Purina, the Purina swine, which I mentioned last
Yeah.
week and maybe the week before.
Yeah.
And so here, it's getting to be almost ridiculously funny at this point. I mean, this is now be the fourth time I've read the script.
Now, did they
Because
ask you to snort?
what's that?
Did they ask you to snort?
No, they didn't. Thankfully. But these ridiculous places where we need a little more pause here. I mean, just really nitpicky. So, and I've worked with this client before, and they're not particularly difficult, but they seem to be on this one. So, when those kind of things happen, it's best to say, hey, look, you know what? Why don't you get on Skype and you listen as I read?
Yeah.
And that way, they have no recourse after that because you've done what they've asked you to.
Absolutely.
And you can charge them if that doesn't work after that.
And so at that point, when you've done that, does that mean that, or you've suggested that they do that with you, does that mean pretty much you're going to get it done that time?
Yeah, it means it will be done that time because they've signed off on it, and if not, then we're billing for a new session.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So and it doesn't happen that often. It's it's not that big a thing, but now it's just getting to be a bit irritating because it seems like it's being overly nitpicky.
Yeah. Well,
But hey,
yeah. And now was this found through one of the agents?
no, this actually came through a referral through a client, and I've done work for them in the past, and it's not even Purina that's being nitpicky, it's the production company that's working with Purina. So, and I mean, the client has a right to be as picky as they want, but I followed their direction
To the T.
3 times already, so.
Yeah. Now, I think that if they do it again, my suggestion is you say these words. Don't you know I'm Bill DeWeese?
Yes, maybe throw a few expletives in there as well. Yeah, I don't know what they don't get about that, but
yeah, I don't know. That's fun.
So that was, I mean, that's my most frustrating moment this week, which that's not such a big deal. I did some more. Kroger's been using me to do training. They sent some more my way this week. I did some regional radio ads for a car dealership in Ohio. I did some narration work for Cisco, the technology company. Let's see here. I do work on occasion for PayPal, the training narration for their employees. And also did some more. I do a lot of training narration.
Yeah.
A drug product, federal regulations relating to a drug. I did some training for that.
Always stimulating copy to read that.
And what's funny is I love doing that kind of stuff. I can just do that stuff all day.
Really, doesn't bother.
Not at all. I really enjoy it. I really do.
Very cool.
But
Okay,
I'm just wired that way.
That was Monday. What was Tuesday like?
Tuesday did some more training narration, IT security. I auditioned for a radio imaging job, and radio imaging is where you're the voice of a station.
Yeah.
The greatest hits of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, that kind of stuff. There was a classic hits station. I haven't heard back yet on that one, but that was an audition. I did some a promotional narration for Brocade, which is a technology kind of thing.
Let's go back a second to the radio imaging. You got that audition as a result of your own efforts on a pay-per-play, or was it?
No. That came through. There's a company out of Texas that specializes in they do concert spots, and they do radio imaging, and that's all they do. And I reached out to them directly maybe 5 or 6 years ago and sent them. I had a radio imaging demo that I had created, and they liked it, and they put me on their roster. And as a result, I've picked up a couple of clients. And the great thing about radio imaging, and it doesn't pay the greatest, but it's retainer work. So you may make 200, 300, maybe more a month, and they send you several pages of script to read, and it's not hard work at all, but it's guaranteed income. So I like that.
Yeah, just basically covers the utility bill at that big house there.
That's right, almost. Almost covers it.
Okay, kidding. So is that anything?
No, I let's see here. I did some updates for Pullman Regional Hospital, which we had talked about up there in, I think, Washington. Yep. I did some work for Hitachi, a short training narration. I do training narration for QuickBooks, did some work for them, and also some training narration for Hitachi. So again, as you can see, the bulk of my work is, I do some commercials, but I do tons of training narration.
Got it. And again, I think that commercials are looked at as a lot sexier work, but
yes, but not as plentiful as corporate and training type of work.
Yep. Okay, so let's look at Wednesday then.
Wednesday, it was an interesting day because we just had a new fireplace put in, and Wednesday was construction day at our house. And so I was working around, they had to knock out some old brick, and so there was all kinds of noise going on. But what I did was I sat in my studio and I would wait for the chiseling of the brick to stop.
And then run in and do the copy.
And then I sat there and I would wait for it to stop, and then I would record, and as soon as it started I would stop and I would wait, and then so I did that all day long. But I was able to get some work done for some on-hold narration, phone stuff for a manufacturing company. I did some more training work for the National Automobile Dealership Association, and also I recorded some promos for the Immaculate Heart Radio Network. I'm their image voice, so I do retainer work for them.
And again, that's another retainer that's given you monthly?
Yes. Yeah, every month.
What percentage of your revenue monthly comes from retainer work?
Let's see here. I probably make a grand total of, you mean like radio imaging specific? Well, that's really the only retainer work I have. So 350, 45, I make maybe 600-ish, $600 to $700 a month, depending. Actually, no, I take that back. That's not right. It's more than that now, because now I do that PBS
yep.
New Mexico. So it's close to $1,000, yeah, a month.
Got it. It's a nice regular income, even though it's not a whole ton of it. It's there.
Yeah. So I love that because I can count on that. I did some narration, a corporate job for a Danish manufacturing facility, which had to be timed out. So what they do is they send you the video, the Danish version, where it's actually they're superimposing my voice over a guy who's in a manufacturing facility explaining what they do. And so what I did had to time out. I think ADR is the actual technical term for it.
Yeah.
Where you superimpose your voice.
Digital replacement or whatever. What's ADR?
Sounds good to me. I have no idea.
I don't know.
So I had to make sure everything I did timed out. If he talked for 12 seconds, I had to talk for 12 seconds, and so on and so forth. That was kind of interesting. I did some pickup work for some medical narration that I had done back in January. And here's a lesson in all of this. Always save your work, because, again, this was done back in January, and I save everything. It's all organized, and I'm pretty meticulous with that, because I've done it wrong enough times earlier in my career to realize don't do it. Record everything, because they just wanted a few lines changed, and it was a really big project. So I was able to go back and just do the few lines and listen to what I did and make it match and fit it all back in. I do training narration for Toastmasters.
Oh.
So I did some work for them, and then some more corporate narration for a European client. It was environmental, scientific kind of stuff. Didn't really understand what I was talking about, but I love my European clients, so it's all good. And that was all I did on Thursday.
Cool. And so then Friday, did anything happen?
Yeah, I did some more corporate narration work. I did some pickups for Kroger for their training. I was shortlisted on an audition for the SaskTel Network. It's a Canadian phone company, and got some really good feedback.
The Sasquatch Network? What?
Yeah, exactly, Sasquatch Network. And so I'm hoping that's a decent job if I get it. So we'll see. And then did more work. Hitachi's been using me a lot lately.
Got to be careful. Those Canadians, but get them to pay in advance.
No offense to our Canadian listeners. I get a lot of work.
I love them.
Yes, and I get a lot of work from Canadian clients, as well as European clients.
Yep.
And I don't say hosts, or I don't or process. I don't use, I'm very American. I'm not, U.S.
That brings up the question: what percentage of your business comes from non-American clients? So that would include obviously Canadian, Australian, England. I mean, did you do any work for anybody in England?
I have in the past. As a matter of fact, I just did work last week. It was for a pharmaceutical company that came through a client in the UK.
Okay.
Yeah, so I do periodically. I would say probably at least a good third.
A third.
I would
Wow.
say comes from either Canadian or European clients. A good amount, a
Wow.
goodly amount. Yes,
Good. Sounds like you may need to take a road trip there to see these people in person.
I would love to. I've thought often that it'd be nice if I could get the time to do it, to make a list of my most profitable clients and to
Yep.
do a road trip and just
I,
show up.
I think it's a great idea.
I think it would be cool.
Not only that, I think it might actually, it certainly would boost the business, I think.
Why not? I mean, wouldn't you be impressed if somebody stopped and said, "Hey, I just thought I wanted to stop in and introduce myself."
Yeah, absolutely. I think it would be great. And then all of a sudden, they say, oh, yeah, well, you've got a face that's not made for radio. We can put you on the air here. Do you mind doing a TV spot?
You never know.
Uh,
I'd love to do it with my European clients too. I think they'd be really impressed.
they would be.
If I made
Yeah.
a
So
trip.
that was pretty much, that was the week then, huh?
That was my week. Yeah, yeah. And one of the things that here's the big lesson learned for me this week. I always try to think, what was the big thing, the big takeaway? And it goes
Yeah.
back to what we talked about earlier. A lot of people really romanticize the idea of being self-employed, and there's a lot to love about being self-employed. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
I mean, I love it, but it's not what a lot of people anticipate that it is. It's like, well, I make my own hours. I work when I want to, and I don't work when I want. Well, and you can do whatever you want, but the reality is, if you're not working, you don't get paid. There's no
Yep.
safety net. There's no employer paying me if I don't work. I don't, and a client can just as easily hire somebody else to take my place if I'm not available. So, while it's awesome and I highly recommend it, those who say, well, you're living the life of leisure because you're doing it when you want to. If you do it that way, you probably are going to struggle. You have to, everybody serves somebody, and you're working for clients, and they have expectations, and you have to meet those.
Sounds good. Now, I would just tell everybody who's watching us on the YouTube channel, make sure and sign up for the podcast on iTunes, which is basically identical, this same audio track without the visuals, and vice versa. Those who are on the YouTube channel should get the podcast just because it's easy to take and it's portable.
Absolutely.
Good. Well, that sounds like you had a pretty good week. You must stay on for me. I don't know if we want to do a coaching session for me on my business yet, but we will do that. But everybody, thank you for listening. This is Fred Gleek with Bill DeWeese. That was his weekly roundup and the weekly VO podcast. Bill, thank you very much.
Thanks, Fred.